what we call actually, as far as Mawari, the value that we bring is the sense of presence. When the sense of presence is there, it does trick your brain. So you forget that you're talking to an avatar in less than 30 seconds, and you are just following along with it. In Mawari, we do believe that the future with AR is not dystopian. It's actually social. Just like here right now, Sal is with his hologram having a normal conversation with us. There's nothing dystopian about it. It's just cool.
The first thing I wanted to ask you is just I couldn't find you on Twitter, man. What's up with that? Usually, like I'll look up a founder's Twitter and see what they've been tweeting recently. Get to know them a little bit or get to know what they've been thinking about or talking about. But couldn't find you there. Do you have a Twitter or do you just not use it?
I do not have Twitter. It's not intentional. It's just because there's this in Web3. This being anonymous and mysterious is kind of like sometimes interesting. It's just, as you know, we come from the Web2 world. And so my actual online presence is in LinkedIn. So if you look for me in LinkedIn, I'm there.
Yeah, I think I found you there, but we got to get you on Twitter at some point. It's just very much more crypto native, right? So like as you guys kind of bridge into the Web3 world, because I understand you've been building in Web2 for a while, would be cool to see you on Twitter as well.
I will do it, and with my avatar. We have a couple surprises actually on that end, but yes, I'll definitely do it.
Sweet. Well, let us know when you do. I'll follow you. Really, just jumping into it now. I saw Meta just tease the Orion AR glasses, which looked pretty cool. I'm just curious, high level, like what you thought of those, and maybe if Mawari will ever get into the hardware game yourselves, or if you have plans to.
Well, okay, so yeah, so first of all, the Meta Orion is a marvel of technology. It's that holy grail, and it's a very strong sign that we're getting closer and closer. I was expecting already an announcement, but the level of readiness of this device was like it blew me away. It does have like the same field of view as the Vision Pro, but it's not video, it's real see-through, and you can have like, yeah, that Ready Player One type of experience with them. So I think it's only a matter of time now. I mean, the prototype is expensive, but you know how fast also Meta went from prototype to get the Quest 3 at $500, which is accessible in general. So that's I mean, this year Apple Vision Pro, Meta Orion, also Samsung announcing that they will be in the game in next year. So the game is on. The countdown started. That's what I want to say. And then about ourselves making a device, not at all. I mean, our place is in the content delivery, and Meta has invested billions of dollars in this device, so it would be foolish to try to make our own device.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. Great answer. I hadn't thought too much about, I guess, just like the level of R&D or capex or time and money that it would cost to even getting into the hardware game is a very easy thing to say, but a very difficult thing to actually achieve. Do you see a place for separate AR VR hardware, or should the two be combined? I might just be kind of like naive about the two, and maybe like it just makes sense to have them in one device. But I guess like the Vision Pros have the kind of like pass through ability in terms of vision, but I would assume you could potentially turn that off also. So maybe just, yeah, curious where you see like AR versus VR. Will they be combined? Will there be optionality? Should they be separate? That kind of thing.
Well, if we think in general as part of our vision as a company and personally, it's just a continuum in the end. And Apple was amazingly good because you have a dial here where you can actually just by dialing is more VR or it becomes completely AR. It's brilliant and it explains that yeah, the future is actually gonna be multifunctional as the devices get lighter and more wearable in the end. Well, there will be also a place for application specific devices anyways, as there is right now. So think about, like, for example, there have been some interesting prototypes of snowboarding glasses that are augmented and they gamify as you are snowboarding. So that has to be a protected glass in the end, and it needs to be augmented reality. So there will be application only, but more for the general daily use. I think they will be, yeah, blending both at some point in time.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, if it's a continuum, right, it makes sense to just have both VR and AR supported on the same piece of hardware, I guess, kind of like it is now. Um, Another thing I want to quickly ask you about, just as an expert, is haptic feedback suits as part of the whole kind of Ready Player One potential future we're going towards. What do you think of those? I mean, there's this one called the Tesla suit that I've been following on Twitter for a while, but I guess for people that don't know, haptic feedback suits are basically like clothing that you put on that's kind of mapped to your body, and it will allow you to feel maybe like vibrations or hot or cold based on what is going on in the video game or in the experience that you're having digitally. So yeah, curious what you think of that piece of the tech stack.
Okay, so that's it's also a great technological marvel, but my humble opinion is that's not gonna make the mainstream. It's very very niche, and also it's a little bit dystopian in the end, because Ready Player One is dystopian, and in Mawari we do believe that the future with AR is not dystopian. It's actually social. Just like here right now, Sal is with his hologram having a normal conversation with us. There's nothing dystopian about it. It's just cool.
Yeah, one thing for me on that, Connor, is like I've noticed that with the vision, I more and more have come to believe that like vision is just such a powerful primitive, both on like the mapping side, but also on like they're the one of the first Vision Pro apps that they made was this like dinosaur thing. Basically, these huge dinosaurs come and you're in like an immersive like Jurassic Park like landscape, and this massive T-Rex comes and its face gets like 3 inches from your face, and like you physically have the reaction of like backing up. Like you feel like there's like, you can almost like feel like the hairs on the back of your neck like stand up. I just think if you can trick the brain into actually like feeling most of, or just inferring most of these other sensors with sufficiently high quality and immersive vision experiences.
Yeah, I will double down on that because that's one actually of the use cases that is highly successful on what we're using with our technology, which there's a trend, in the internet called VTubers or virtual YouTubers. So it's YouTubers that actually go live through an avatar. But we actually, since last year, we started working here in Japan with them into bringing them into 3D. So we have had with customers like a one-on-one session, a conversation, like not online but physically. Like you put on the glasses and the VTuber is standing or sitting down next to you. It's mind-blogging. Like if the quality and the level of immersion and that what we call actually as far as Mawari, the value that we bring is the sense of presence. When the sense of presence is there, it does trick your brain. So you forget that you're talking to an avatar in less than 30 seconds, and you are just following along with it.
100%. Um, Louis, one thing I'm really curious to get your perspective on because you guys have been working in this space for so long. I've been, for the past like 6 months using the Vision since I got the Vision Pros, learning more and more about the stack and trying to build some rudimentary applications and just basically being a power user of a lot of the AR and VR out there. What I have more the big opportunities that I see are huge missing pieces that maybe there's massive businesses to build around. One is clearly compute. Like there's an edge computing aspect, just the sheer amount of like information that needs to be processed to make these experiences feel like they're immersive is crazy. And so there's a massive amount of compute that needs to be optimized for these things. The other two pieces I'd say are one, developer tooling. Like I've been trying to build some apps for the Vision Pro, and it's really, really hard today. To even, it reminds me of like the first couple iPhones came out, and you were using like Xcode and trying to build apps like that. That's the state of where it's at. And I think there's this huge, a big opportunity there. And the last thing is around like a content library. If you imagine we are going to have all these immersive apps and they're just going to happen in real time, like there's going to be a Netflix like type of like aggregator of really valuable content, I think, in the space. And that doesn't necessarily, of 3D content, and that doesn't exist today. And so I've been on the lookout trying to understand how these three pieces interact, where to invest behind them. You guys have been, studying this market and building it for much longer. So just curious to hear like that journey, and then how do you think about these three pieces and where Mawari is focused?
Well, this is a great question. So the first one, compute. You're spot on. It needs to be offloaded to Edge and cloud because see the size of your Vision Pro is a technological marvel, but you have two big processors and then the attached battery here. So that's not it's not physically possible to reduce to the size of a Ray-Ban glasses and have the same amount of compute on device. And and you probably have noticed that your Vision Pro somehow gets a little bit hot when you're using it for a long period of time. So that's also not sustainable in terms because it's something that you're wearing in your face. So we were very fortunate to realize about this problem in 2018 actually. That's when we started working on this. We saw, wow, okay, the devices will be more terminal-like rather than standalone. And the Orion release just proves that actually that this is how it's going to become so that we can have a more mainstream adoption in terms of the form factor. So compute and this and again that's also what the roots of Mawari network because you're mentioning edge. Yes, rendering needs to be relatively close to you. No, it cannot be, for example, if I'm right now in Tokyo and I have a node here streaming to you, it's the latency may not be the optimal for having a good experience. So that's where the architecture design that we did, it needs this distributed compute network. And today is since there's not enough use cases just yet, it's very hard for hyperscalers to reinvest billions of dollars in building a different architecture, especially now that AI is in demand and it's a completely different game there too. So the only way to get a distributed network at scale is okay, so it's distributed and you have different parties joining providing their own compute. You need the transparency layer, which is the decentralization and where Web3 blockchain and now called deep income comes into place. So I'm proud to say actually that we were a deep in project from inception because we needed to actually to really fulfill our vision and scale. Developer tools, you're right. Apple is Apple and always likes to create things on on their own and makes it complicated for developers, but that's their biggest moat also as well because once it starts gaining traction, it becomes a very tight ecosystem. Secondly, in the case of Meta, they are taking exactly the opposite approach, which is with the Meta Horizon OS that they are opening it for other devices, and it will become an open source ecosystem. So they're going the Android way per se. So so that, yes, brings an opportunity to build tools on top of those two ecosystems and literally mimic what's happening with the mobile application ecosystem today. Right now, most of the XR content is built in either Unity or Unreal Engine, but mainly Unity. Unity has focused a lot on XR tooling, but it's not straightforward. So I do see a huge opportunity for not only developer tooling, but just like today, you have the creator economy, and it's very easy to produce a podcast. It's very easy to be a content creator. content creation tools for XR is one of the good niches that will skyrocket within the next 2 3 years.
Real quick, if you could, like how XR will empower even more content creation or easier content creation.
Well, I mean, a clear example is right now Sal. He's streaming from his Vision Pro, and he's now creating a new type of podcast. And if we all had a Vision Pro, we will be actually seeing each other in 3D, right? And then if your audience then has a Vision Pro or would have the Quest 3, you are generating a new channel, and it's just now content generation in 3D. So think about like uh, the way we see it is that each each one of the use cases that we have in 2D, it will at some point in time be replaced in 3D with something very alike or something completely different in the end. And the most obvious is conferences calls, because right now we're in 2D, but they will become in 3D, and everybody is easily understand it. There are a lot of movies already showcasing this.
Gotcha. Yeah, so like the format or the distribution channel or the experience can all change when you go from, I guess, regular reality to extended or augmented or virtual reality. Um, Curious why you all wanted to kind of enter the Web3 space and adopt a deep-in model, right? You were building in Web2 for maybe 6 7 years. Obviously saw some success there, but what about Web3 is appealing to you? What about a deep-in model to building a network is appealing to you?
Well, just going back to the principles where okay, we started gaining significant traction after the pandemic with enterprise clients, especially in the US. And the request was like, okay, so we want to deploy this for a couple thousand users concurrently. And like just like any startup, yes, we can do it, right? So we go to AWS, and it's like, oh, sorry, no, this type of requirement is impossible to fulfill. We go to GCP, same story, and then we were in this problem. It's like, okay, so we've been already in stealth mode for about 6 years, or it's 5 years at the time. Should we stay and just wait for the hyperscalers to solve it, or do we go again down the rabbit hole and try to solve the problem on our own? Uh, we are a startup, so we are in that way thinking outside the box. So I started making some research, and that was just the timing where Helium and Render Network were starting to make noise, and they were an inspiration to me. It's like, wow, okay, it's possible to really bootstrap the supply through Web3. And in 2022, that's when we went to the Outlier Ventures Accelerator. We solidified and validated that actually my dream or theory is actually possible to do. And then that's when the rest of the team actually decided, yes, okay, this makes sense, and we just embarked in this direction.
Yeah, I guess from like a maybe just like pure physics or unit economics perspective, basically you're saying that the rendering for concurrent kind of virtual or augmented reality, the rendering requirements in terms of throughput, bandwidth, compute are very high. And so you think those are better done or cheaper done kind of on the edge in a decentralized way across many devices and kind of utilizing many devices and their resources versus decentralized players that you went to couldn't really fulfill that demand or that fit that use case?
Well, the first is centralized players. Again, the latency is the issue. So before we go into the economics, if you have too much of a latency between the rendering node and the end user, you don't have a good experience. Because, for example, the Vision Pro has the rendering on device, so you have milliseconds from the chip to the display, right? And what we're doing with cloud rendering and streaming is we're cutting that direct connection and we're separating it. But there's so much we can separate before it becomes, it gives you motion sickness and all those things. So this is why we need a distributed network of GPUs, and that's something that the hyperscalers can't do today because they have different priorities. Second, on the economy side, I mean, if you go to Akash or IO.net, the price per GPU hour is significantly cheaper than what you would find in AWS or GCP with a similar spec GPU. So that right off the bat shows you that through the decentralized gig economy actually is more sustainable and fruitful for everybody. Unfortunately, hyperscalers, since they have a big monopoly per se, they do decide to mark up prices as they see fit. And right now, cloud compute GPUs are in high demand. So this is decentralized compute, not just only for our use case, but also for AI, will change that.
Hey, Louis, how are those two things different? Like from an architecture perspective, what makes an AR VR cloud different than an AI cloud?
Well, with AI, you have two processes, right? Like the training and then the inference. So the training can be anywhere in the end because you just send your model to train and you just wait for it to be finished. So you don't care whether there's low latency on it or not. But when it comes to inference, there will be some use cases in which it's okay to wait, but that's a very good point. But there will be some cases in which edge actually will really matter because you are expecting the decision of the AI model to be almost instant versus just wait a bit. So think about in our context. So when you go into ChatGPT, it's text. So you're okay with waiting a little bit for the prompt to come back, right? And that's it. But if it was a ChatGPT powered avatar, and for example, you're asking me a question right now, I reply right away. There's immediate feedback, and if you wait 1 second for the avatar to tell you back the answer, it throws you off. So that's one example. Or another example would be think about for example, even also in AR, like you're mapping your room and the Vision Pro is calculating the geometry of your room so that you can position the objects. If you if you were to offload that AI process into a very remote server, you are out of the game. So yes, so there will be certain AI processes that will need edge, and that's something of our longer term vision. That since we're already building an edge GPU network that will be compounded on top of the services that we offer today.
Cool. That makes sense. Looking ahead into, I guess we're in Q4 of this year and Q1 of next. It looks like you guys are going to be doing a node sale this quarter and then mainnet launch in Q1. And so I'm curious how you're thinking about go to market on the supply and demand side, and just kind of high level how you're looking to launch this DePIN network.
Sure. Well, the node cell is basically it fulfills our mandate, which is actually bootstrap the supply and decentralize in the end, aligned incentives to find a mechanism of transfer of value for the resource and work that you're providing. So in terms of go to market, it's pretty simple. This is Mawari. This is what we do. We're powering the future of the internet. And do you want to join our mission? Yes or no? And it's simple. We're looking for people that does believe that the future is XR. I think everyone thinks differently in terms of the timing, but it's kind of like almost already an accepted reality that this will happen at some point in time. So that's the main motivation. It's like, okay, so there will be a very fruitful and active ecosystem and an active ecosystem of compute per se, and you can be a very early adopter of this, which and you can really help change how the internet value chain is built today. That's the opportunity and that's the message.
That's like the sales pitch. That makes sense. It's exciting. What exact, just real quick, what exact hardware are we talking about here? Are you looking to tap into latent hardware that's already out there? Are you looking to incentivize net new purchases of hardware? What does the supply side look like in terms of actual devices for you?
Okay, so this is very interesting. We for 3D rendering, we don't need an H100. So that being said, I'll give you a simple example. So before the Ethereum proof of stake event, everybody was starting to mine with mine Ethereum with GPUs, right? And they were graphic GPUs, like more like consumer grade. So that's actually a very good supply for us today that some people are even just throwing them to the garbage because they then they are not profitable and anymore. So yeah, we're tapping actually in this underutilized supply because those are actually the GPUs that are suitable for 3D graphics rendering. So if you think about also in terms of more of a consumer point of view, if you have a gaming PC, that gaming PC can have a 3070 or can have a 4090. I mean, a 4090 is gold for us. It renders pretty beautiful graphics, and that's what we need.
Makes sense. Um, Louis, one other question from my end. I know, you guys have been running a real business and making money for the past couple of years outside to help bootstrap the eventual, large decentralized network. How do you guys make money today? And if you can disclose some figures around like revenue or just like size and what type of customers you serve to give folks a better idea of what the profile of the business is.
Sure. Okay. So when we started the company in 2017 and we started actually making revenue in 2018, the type of revenue was more actually on proof of concepts because in the end the industry was very early. Uh, and at the time, especially in Asia, because 5G came a little bit later to the US. In 2018 and 2019, there was the rollout of the first generations of 5G here in Asia. So there was budget actually to demonstrate what is the power of 5G and why it matters. And it was obvious at that point in time that one of the best use cases that were a match for 5G is XR. So that was let's call it like the type of customer which we would call it innovation partners, because they wanted to innovate, they wanted to show the potential of the future. So if you think like there's like this bell-shaped curve of adoption that you have the innovators, then the early adopters, then the is the actually
Late majority, right? And then like mass consumer.
early majority and late majority. So we were those type of customers back in 2018 and 2019 were the innovators. And we were fortunate enough that yeah, we had a very excellent, or we have still have an excellent team. So we delivered uh, time to time, and it allowed us to actually make 1.5 million of revenue in average per year. But as you know, there's since it's a POC, it's not scalable. So we were just averaging that, but that allowed us to really reinvest into the R&D and grow the team and be self-sustainable. So actually, yeah, we bootstrapped the company for about 6 years, effectively. But then it got to a point in time in which, okay, it made sense. We have core technology. We have validated that XR streaming makes sense for the actually for special computing of XR. So it's time to build a product. But that's where the balance between, okay, so there's cash here for an immediate project, but that is it does not 100% fulfill the needs of you building a product. So that's when we decided to actually, yeah, okay, join Outlier Ventures and start a race because we needed capital to actually focus on building a platform on top of the technology. So that's where the next wave of partners or customers come in that is now not early innovators. Now they are the early adopters. And we are right now at that part of the chasm per se, because these early adopters are actually starting to, yeah, bring innovation into the space. And the type of these early adopters, I could categorize them in that they are IP owners, or for example, the case of VTubers, which is in any case a very early stage use case, but that is fully in 3D, is compatible with our vision. So there's a very low friction, and it makes sense for them. So those are our type of customers now. Uh, and that's the main difference in which in within this transition. So we were at the 1.5 and we are now on that again that bell shape. I believe this year will start at will finish at that level. I My lawyer will kill me if I tell you the exact revenue of this year, but what we do have now ARR, and we're getting very close to where we were before, and we see a lot more demand, so it will just keep growing and growing in an organic way.
Yeah, love to hear it. Excited for you guys to ramp that and turn it into more kind of like you said ARR versus like one-off POCs as the overall AR VR industry advances and there's more people that adopt the technology. That's really all we had for you today. Is there anything else you want to tell our audience, or different ways they can get involved or help out, or just anywhere you want to point them to on the internet, on your socials?
Sure. I mean, get involved is like I say, join us, help us build the 3D internet, and that could be either providing your resources, your compute power, or actually building for it. What we can also offer as an ecosystem is, yeah, we have 7 years building for AR. So actually, we know what use cases actually can monetize today, which is this is one of the biggest dilemmas of an AR developer, that they are very passionate about the technology, but they cannot go full time because there's a very not like a black box of what's the path for monetization. So this is what we can offer as an ecosystem. We have strong partners that we can plug in the ecosystem into it, and we can provide advice on what are these monetization paths.
Awesome. Well, Luis, thank you so much for coming on. Very excited to hear about what you're building, and I think our audience will be as well.